Hello, welcome to the Race Ramble. I am Chip Dodd. This is Andrea Anderson from Team thisABILITY. The Race Ramble is going to be fast, focused, and frank coverage of the most recent race that we've just done, the 24-hour Adventure Racing Solo National Championships hosted by AR Georgia. It just went down August 26th on Friday night, ending Saturday at 6 p.m. It's a little bit northwest of Atlanta. There's a little park called Allatoona Creek Park on the same lake called Lake Allatoona. And then basically we work our way up into the Red Top Mountain State Park, which is Allatoona Lake. So that's the general area northwest of Atlanta. Even though it was in an urban area, it was like super fun and remote. And so in this video, we're going to get into the details, not only of our experience, but also the entire race overview. And for those of you who wait till the end, we're going to do lessons learned where I think a lot of the value is going to be.
Yeah, but before we get started, I think we need to set the stage, like give them some context, like how we got into this race. Leading up to it, we just had a busy week. And we vetted the Buff Betty 2 weeks before. So that's a 12-hour race that's going to be in a couple of weeks while we're in Paraguay. So this race was sandwiched between vetting the Buff Betty and us going to Paraguay. And so we're kind of in flux anyway. So we also have day jobs. So during the lead up, we were at a conference. So Tuesday and Wednesday, Chip did an excellent job doing some speaking things for our human services trade organization. So that was busy and stressful. And Chip never shies away from any opportunity to be social. So one of those nights at the conference, he pulled an all-nighter, because it's really valuable to have those personal connections with people. So I value that too. But I was not going to be the one to stay up all night 2 nights before an overnight race. Anyway, it happened. And I felt glad at that point that we were not racing as a team because I didn't care. I got to race by myself. Who cares if Chip pulled an all-nighter 2 nights before? So anyway, we got a late start. The next day, we thought, oh, we're going to be all ready to go. And so we weren't. And we had a couple of work meetings and we had to do the drive. It's about a 9-hour drive. So we didn't make it all the way on Thursday like I wanted to. And on Friday, we woke up really early, 5:30 a.m. We woke up, which is really early for us. We really had to back math what time we had to be at the start. So like every race, even though we try not to be too like frantic, we're kind of up against the wire to get everything together and there. So we did the drive and we got there. We stayed in the Walmart parking lot the night before in the van. And even as we were driving, Chip was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on the way to the start line. So that's how it started. We got there, and as far as expectations go, I am generally not racing solo very often anymore. I do orienteering meets by myself, and they're not usually more than 3 to 6 hours maybe. I did the longest race I did by myself was in 2016, and it was a 12-hour race, so none of it was in the dark. So I've done a lot of racing overnight. I've done a lot of big races. So you'd think I'd have enough confidence to be out there on my own, but navigation is scary. And when we vetted the Buff Betty, I made quite a few errors. Like I was virtually in tears thinking that I could not do this nationals race. And I told Chip, I'm going to just call him and tell him I'm going to volunteer instead. But I didn't, I waited 24 hours after vetting the Buff Betty to decide, what to do. And so I decided what the heck, Air Georgia does do a great job in making it accessible for the masses. Like all of the points were optional. So in my mind, I figured it would be kind of like that, that I could give up things that I didn't feel comfortable doing. And I could just do what I could. And that was a good choice. All the points were optional, like I said. And I don't know, what were your expectations? Oh, wait, one more thing. I didn't expect a place, and I was, there were 5 women, and I only knew personally 1 or 2 of them and not that well. So, for me, it was just, I didn't want to necessarily be last. and I didn't want to have like a total catastrophe. Like I didn't want to have to crawl up in a ball in the middle of the night and wait for the sun to come up, because I kind of thought that was a possibility. So that was my expectations. What were yours?
I just wanted to make sure you didn't beat me. I mean, in my mind, it was likely I was going to bobble.
No way.
And
You
were
never
gonna,
thought
yeah.
that. You didn't have that thought until
let's just say it crossed my mind.
The first leg.
It crossed my mind, especially when you smoked me on the first two legs.
Well, like, yeah, but what were your expectations?
Okay, so my expectations going in. My biggest concern right now is we're doing the World Championships in Paraguay, and I could not get hurt. And I mean overuse injuries. I mean tripping and falling in the woods and getting impaled, breaking a finger, being sore. It's just one of those. I do not want to let my team down and do that. So I kind of went into this knowing I'm throttling back. I'm never going to catch the Jessies or Tim or any of these stuff. I just want to get in there and like you did. I just didn't want to basically embarrass myself and have a terrible time. I just wanted to methodically execute, and I even tried some new things with the strategy, as we'll talk about later in the video. So that was really my expectations, but I was really thinking I knew you'd land on the podium. I was like thinking you're gonna nail it, and I knew I was gonna get smacked down.
Let's just say up front though, the chances were greater for me to be on the podium than you. You know,
yeah, totally.
5 people compared to how many men in your division?
There was a lot.
Yeah, and you had the choice to, like, we had the choice to sign up as a master or as an overall. And the overall, there was $1,000 prize. So I thought, anyone could have a bad day. So maybe, so why not go for the overall, which I did. And, I'm 50. I still think it's a good choice. Is, who really cares? Like I said, it could be anyone's game. I felt like, especially not necessarily knowing the competition. So anyway.
Absolutely. Okay, so next up, we've talked about the goals and everything. Let's get into the race overview. All right, hold on tight. Again, we are going to be fast on this. So down here in the bottom right, you see Atlanta, Georgia. So basically northwest. This is where the race occurred. I'm going to scroll in. This is actually Jesse Tubbs' track, the new Adventure Racing champion of the solo national championships. Okay. So here's how this worked. Basically, we had 2 different trek sections that basically alternated. What they didn't want to do is have the 2 teams or 2 solos working together. So they randomly gave you either Trek A, Trek B. So basically, one was kind of down here in the south area, and another one was a little bit more in the north area. So let's call that Trek 1, Trek 2, and then you come back to TA, and you got 2 different bike maps. One bike map basically went on a southern route down here. You can see these red checkpoints, and the other bike route went way up north. And you get back to TA, and then you head over to your kayak, and they were staged there. And you come across Allatoona Lake and work your way up, getting some checkpoints all the way up. Some of us portaged right there. We're going to talk about that later. Come up, there's a couple trek points here right before you get to the next TA, where you do a little trek section over here, jump back in your boat, come back across, popping points along the way to get to the finish line. But at the finish, you check in. They give you a trek map with a bunch of little swims. We're going to talk about that. And then you get back for your last leg, which is the bike leg, and you haul butt all around the state park and come across the finish line red hot and tired. So that is basically the overview there. Now I'm going to get into the individual leg information, just to give you guys an idea of what we were expecting. Okay, so right here, the Trek 1 was 4 to 5 miles, Trek 2, 6 to 8 miles. Then you do the bike. The first bike section was like 19 miles, which is basically there's a north and a south section. There's 2 different maps. Combined, they're 19 if you did them all. And you get on the paddle, 12 to 17 miles. Again, this was all Rogaine. You're allowed to skip points along the way. So 12 was like if you just beelined it, point A to point B. 17 is if you're going out getting all the checkpoints. Then we get into the next trek, which was 9 miles if you cleared that area. Back on the boat, 3 to 12 miles, back over to the finish line. And then at the finish line, you were given a map for a trek, which is about 6 miles. And then over to the last bike, which is up to 13 miles if you clear that course. So that's the basic overview of the entire race.
So there were some unique things about this race, mostly because we were all soloists, and they didn't want to give any information out ahead of time. So none of the maps were revealed until the start. So even at the start line, the prologue was to run around the flag and then come get your maps. So that was really different. Navving on the fly I think is more challenging. You know, we didn't have time necessarily. Well, you could take time if you wanted to plan out your route. But, you know, most of us didn't, especially starting out on foot. It's a little bit easier to do nav on the fly, sort of. So that was unique. That we're also not supposed to be given any information. So that's kind of tricky. Like when you come into the TA, you know, you're kind of usually used to hearing like how you're doing, how everyone else is doing, you know, you can ask questions, but they really wanted you to use just the information you got from the handouts and not to help each other. I think that was generally the case. I don't think there was a lot of helping, but we'll talk about that a little bit later.
One thing, let me jump in on that. One of the things, Jeff and the team at AR Georgia, they knew that there's $1,000 on the line for the winner. And so they wanted to keep things perfectly fair. So there's none of this like Chip comes in TA and says, hey, when's Jesse Tubb coming through? How far am I behind him or whatever? Because that gives me information that he didn't have. And so the idea is they want to make it super fair because there's a lot of money on the line.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you can try to be fair, but also all of us racers are really nice people. So yeah. I'm not sure. I'm not sure like where, you know, where down the rankings the helping began, or if there was any, you know, like usual. I think there might have been some helping more towards the further end of the race and the lower in the rankings. But anyway, we'll get into that. Also, there's minimal gear. It was a really hot day. We didn't need all of what you might usually need. So that was kind of exciting. Course strategy was really important. We did get what legs in order, you know, we got the instructions that had what legs were going to be coming at us, just none of the maps. So, you know, I mean, that's not necessarily unusual for a race, but it was really important. We did know also that we were not going to see our bin until 20 hours into the race. So that last 4 hours was meant to be kind of a shootout so that we would all gather up and everyone be out there, you know, to have an exciting finish. And our bin was there. So 20 hours of stuff you had to either have in your backpack or your bike or your boat. There was no gear limits for anything though. And, you know, there was not too much in the instructions about what you could and couldn't do about that. So a little of that was strategy as well. So yeah, any other unique things about that?
I thought it's funny. All the race staff had on their back of their shirts said read the instructions. So that was their answer. If you ask any question, they just look at read the instructions, bro. I can't tell you anything.
They did? I can't believe I didn't notice that. All the red shirts I kind of had tunnel vision, so I didn't get myself freaked out.
And we talked about it a little bit when we were going to the intro, but the unique thing on this, like part of me was like relieved that it's starting at 6 p.m. because you're not all the stress of running and doing bike drop at like 4 a.m. to start at 6 a.m. But the problem is from the sleep standpoint, we got at 5:30 the night before. So by the time you get into the race, you're already 12 hours into your day. So I normally blow through the first night like it's nothing on a race. Meanwhile, I'm starting off the race a little more tired than I was expecting. And so that put me down. That was the start being late in the day, I thought was pretty unique, where the nighttime is only 2 hours after you start.
Well, and specific, well, to me, that day I had been working while we were driving. So, you know, tax stuff is due this time of year for our company. So I had already been using my brain a lot. So that kind of was a little taxing. I liked that it started then, but I think I would have liked it more if I had planned better and had been able to like take a nap or just had a more restful day leading up to it, because it was super fun starting it fresher at that time. Like I thought it's nice to have energy that night.
So one other thing, the bike drop and the paddle drop all happened before we had any information of the race, right? Right before we got on the bus, after check-in is when we got handed, or I'm sorry, at check-in, we got handed like, here's the trek, here's the paddle, and here's kind of what to expect. And you can start working on your times. All your food's already away at the boats and the thing. So you couldn't, we really had to just be ready for absolutely anything Jeff threw at us. And the course designer, I don't know exactly the course driver. Let's just say Jeff and his team, we just had to be ready for everything. So we got water filters and all this stuff. We had no idea if they're going to be providing water and Gatorade and snacks. Of course, it's AR Georgia. They always provide snacks. But
I had 3 liters of water in that pack to start with. That's heavy for me.
Right.
Hard for me to run with that.
Other thing I loved about this race, when it comes down to course strategy, they specifically put the checkpoints out where there's lots of swimming opportunities and cut acrosses. And so I was not ready to just dive in with my pack. I did have a contractor bag that I could use, but basically that was unique about this race is that if you are a swimmer and your stuff was locked down in a dry bag, you could move a lot quicker through this course then somebody like me has got to pull my pack out, put it
well,
in a
we'll have to
dry
talk
bag.
about our
We'll talk about
different
that later.
strategies later because we did not do that the same.
Right. Okay, so I guess let's transition into the leg comments. So let's start talking about the trek, the first trek. And I'm just going to start with leg one, even though they handed us, it depended on trek 1 or 2, depending on your random pick. I got the trek 1. So I'm doing this in the daylight at this point. Basically, teams had the option of doing it. I mean, you can obviously see it's kind of either clockwise or counterclockwise rotation. Although there's trails on the map, this is a mountain bike park. And so there's tons of optional trails with TFFs and all kinds of things. So it was a little tough getting through here. You kind of had to use a little bit of train association and everything. And the CP1 is like in a swamp. So you're like, congratulations, welcome to Adventure Racing. 2 minutes after, you're already soaking wet up to your knees in swamp muck. And that was a premonition. Jeff almost wanted us to be wet this entire race, either with sweat or getting in the water to cool ourselves off. So I guess you want to get into unique stuff about this?
Yeah, I think it's funny. Well, I did this trek in the dark. I got the other trek first. So I think it's funny that Chip and I chose different directions to go. I went clockwise and he went counterclockwise. I think the clockwise helped me a little bit, but clearly I had a little bit of a bobble, just kind of figuring out the trails here and there. There was some private property I came around, but my proud moment was there at number 2. I came around that stream and there was a trail that was not on the maps that, went right along the trail. I pace counted from the bend and I hit that right on. I was like really proud of myself and especially excited later when I saw Chip's track. What happened there, Chip?
Because like you pace counted somehow and dropped it on and knew exactly where this point was.
Okay,
so now let's look at how not to do things. So this is my second CP. I got spanked. I mean, it was like right out of the gate. Okay, so I get my feet wet. I come around the corner. I pace count off this trail. And then I come in and I go right to the CP, but I aimed a little right, thinking I would all I get is hit the thing and then turn left. Sure enough, I was off by like a meter. Didn't see the CP, went all the way down and then all the way back. Meanwhile, Jesse Spangler, who I was side by side with right here, has already cleared this whole thing and catches me here. I'm on CP2, all like, oh my God, I just got my butt spanked, and then he's already cleared the course. He's on his way back. It's like, wham. So I start off this race just like, throttle it back, bro. You're getting hot. You're being stupid.
So, were you traveling in the water there, or did you go
I was
along
in the water, just walking along the river.
There was a trail right next to the.
Whatever. I thought I'd hit the water, turn left. I'm gonna find the CP, and I'm like, whoa, it's going southwest. That's time. I went too far. I came back and got it, and I'm just, whatever. So
anyway,
I got whacked.
For me, I was really relieved. I know this was not my first leg, but I was really relieved that this went well for me. It was like my first leg in the complete dark, and I really needed a boost to my confidence. So that was nice.
Yes, well done. So at this point, you're way ahead of me on this.
Way ahead, 1 point.
Okay, so let's do Trek Map 2. So this was a little larger. So I'm going to zoom in here. You can see this is the start finish. Trek 1 was down here in the south. So Trek 2 is this more northern area. And so this definitely takes you a lot further away. So this is the harder trek. Now, Andrea did this one, started off in the daytime. I was doing this all at night. You can see the points are a little more off trail. And this is the fun part. This is when we know that there's going to be a lot of course strategy. You can see this point like CP7, and somehow you got to cross this stream, which was, what, chest deep or more? You had to actually swim.
I had to swim.
Yeah, so this is over your head.
To walk through.
Yep, and you have to choose where do I cross. You come up here to CP8, and then you decide, am I coming right over to CP9, or do I come down and cross? Teams did all kinds of crazy stuff. One team or one guy ran around, I think, and then swam across there, which is also overhead high.
Yeah, I think it's probably a good time to talk about our swim strategy. Yeah. I am not a great swimmer, and I felt more comfortable having my dry bag and my pack on me because I know it floats. So I was a little worried about the dry bag, like holding, but not that worried. So, our phones were double sealed. So I had my dry bag and my pack on, and we had done one swim. Go back to show the first swim that I did, kind of testing things out because I knew it was a short distance. So yeah, right about there. That's not very far to go. And as I did that, I got spent too long looking for a shorter place to go, and I just had to go for it. So I just did a backstroke on my back, kicking my feet. You know, I probably looked like I was flailing, but I did fine, and I appreciated having the flotation in my backpack. So that's how I did it. How did you do all of the swims?
So I had a different strategy, and it was definitely the wrong strategy. I have an out there packs. There's tons of little pockets, all like stuff that can't be submersed. Like you just can't trust a Ziploc bag, like with salt tablets and a little Ziploc bag. You can't go swimming with that. So I had a contractor bag. I put my entire pack in the contractor bag and kind of swim across, holding the pack in the bag. You get out, you put the bag in the backpack, and keep going. It's not a terrible system. It actually worked, but I can't just like run up to water, dive in, swim across, and come out soaking wet on the other end. Took me a couple seconds.
It's a trade-off though. Like, you're an excellent swimmer, so like you didn't have any need for any flotation whatsoever. But I did, like, my pack did fill with water, and I have a few seams that are coming apart on my pack, so I just knew it was soaking up water. I didn't have everything in a dry bag, including my rain jacket, which kind of just collected the water. And there were a little couple of Ziplocs that didn't hold. That good thing I didn't really need them. So it's kind of a trade off. I'll do some things differently, but the swim itself, I was glad to do this in the day. I had this trek first. Chip had it at night in the dark. Do you think there was much different doing that in the dark versus the day?
No, I mean, we train so much and do so many expeditions. Like I kind of operate day or night. Not too worried about it, but so
Yeah.
either way, I try to ignore the night and just use train association and such. One thing, if you guys are interested in this race, go back and look at the tracker. But this CP10 gave a lot of people a hard time. I think the trail maybe was misrepresented on the map because everybody is trying to attack from this attack point right there in the curve and trail. A lot of people gave up on this. I think even the superhuman Jesse Spangler, I think, may have given this point up early in the race because it definitely something was up, and I don't know. I'm sure it was placed properly. I think the trail may be represented. I
That
got it
was
by pace counting
hard to
from the
say.
dam. I can't. I pace counted up from the dam
Oh,
and
so
came
you
in
went
because
all the
the
way to the
the
dam.
dam was a known, and so that's the way I got it. But a lot of people
And
had a problem with that.
when
Yeah.
you left the dam, you didn't cross any other re-entrance before you got to the point. So I thought it might be in the wrong re-entrant. I thought it might have been placed in the wrong
It may
re-entrant.
have been. There's a lot more going on here than shows on the map.
Yes,
So
yes. So
either
it's
way,
hard to say.
that was a tough one. But
Yeah.
anybody's interested in the race, go back and look at people's tracker on this one. There's a lot of just wandering around trying to find it. It
I
was a
think
tough one.
that was the only one though that was I want to say that was the trickiest. Well, obviously I didn't get all the points, so maybe not.
Right.
So I think this is where our strategy started to change. Um, Tell us why you did not go for that point. That was so shocking to me. I thought it was a mistake when I saw you
Yeah.
later and you said you didn't get it. I thought you meant that you tried for it and you didn't find it, but you just meant you did that on purpose.
Yeah, there's
What's
this
up?
point down here. I can't remember the number, CP12. So I gave up CP12. I mean, we're literally just hours into this race, and I'm already giving up my first CP, which is not like me.
No, it's
But
not.
Caitlin and I went around and around and around in endless mountains over how many can we get and how much time do we have and all that. And so I was summoning my inner Caitlin on this. And this is a kind of a learning moment for anybody that does these type of races where it's the race director basically said, this is unclearable unless you're superhuman, Jesse's and Tim. But other than that, so I knew I need to cut points from the start. So I'm on the bus doing math. I'm looking at this saying, okay, I got 52 checkpoints. I got 24 hours. I need to be getting a checkpoint roughly 27, let's call it 28 minutes per checkpoint. And I know I'm cutting something. So what I did early in this race, which is against everything I believe in Adventure Racing, right at this point, I'm looking at this and I'm looking at the clicks down and I got to up and back around over the start. I said that, and then you got to cross this creek twice. And I'm like, nope, that's taking me way more than 30 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and cut this early. I'm going to call that a fool's point and get back to TA and move on. So when I crossed paths with you at the TA, we're both now done with the bike, and I look like living hell. And you were like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, I've already skipped the point." So that
Yeah,
was tough.
so I don't know if that was a good choice or not because we got to the same point almost at the same time, and I not the same point. We got to the same place, and I had one more point than you.
Yeah, you had already cleared it, and I
But you
gave
might
up
have been
one.
like 10 minutes ahead of me, but
Right,
you weren't like significantly
wasn't significant
time
ahead.
wise ahead of
But
me.
I bobbled on 2 points, and it took up a lot of time. And I identified I got to make that time back up. Another thing from a course strategy standpoint that I did, I took the race. Said, okay, 24 hours. every 6 hours, what CP should I be on and at what time? So I knew by 12 p.m. I wanted, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong sheet. By 12 a.m. I wanted to be on CP 13, which is the first bike CP. So I kind of knew where I wanted to be, and if I wasn't following that. And then on the paddle, I knew I wanted to be at CP 26 by 6 a.m. I knew the next paddle, I wanted to be at CP 39 at 12 p.m. So I'm trying to hit these arbitrary targets just to make sure I'm coming through the course. And I'm definitely at the end of the race. We're going to get into it later, but we were given this, you had to get there by 2 and then do a trek and a bike. You were given 4 hours, and I knew there's no way I'm clearing that in 4 hours, so I wanted to buy myself a little extra time.
So I still think there's a little bit of, you said arbitrary, and it kind of is because not all points are created equal. So in my mind, you couldn't necessarily split it up into I need to get, 10 points by this time and 20 points by that time, because a bike point might take you 15 minutes and a paddle point might take you half an hour. So I didn't quite look at it the same, but I think it was really valuable. And obviously he kicked my butt. So
it
anyway.
worked.
All right, so we've made it to the bike section. This was the first one, and the instructions say to read the map. The instructions will be on the map. So I looked at that and I kind of just generalized. I noticed that there's not specific points plotted on the map, and it just says that there'll be a point somewhere along a certain trail. So I looked at them, I thought, oh, we have to ride all the trails. I'll just go ride all the trails. And I thought, well, I was just down in the southern section of the mountain biking, or doing the trek in the southern. I'll just go do those first because I'm a little familiar with them. So I crossed over when I shouldn't have to go to the southwest, and those trails aren't even ones that have a point on them. Oh, so fail on my part. But I noticed it fairly quickly, where right after that, yeah, right there, I noticed like I need to turn around. I didn't read this. I need to pay more attention. Dummy me. So then I started looking at which trails I actually needed to ride, and I headed north, because that southwest was not even on there. So how did you start that?
I actually read the instructions because at first I'm looking at the map and I'm like, why can't I see CPs? I need better glasses, And then I was like, shit, okay, read the instructions, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, ooh, okay, so
Oops.
1 second. We're having a bloopers reel here. Oop. Sorry about the little blip there. Zoom kind of decided to stop. Hopefully we didn't miss too much. So my strategy on this, it was just, I got it that the race director wanted us to ride all the trails, and I knew they'd probably put the checkpoints in such a way that if you tried to start cutting corners, you might miss a checkpoint and then you don't know where you are. At this point also, we've been going for quite a while and it's super hot and I'm mentally a little drained. So just riding, I'm very comfortable on a mountain bike at night. I know you are as well. So I was like, I'm just going to ride the trails fast and just kind of let my brain relax. They had placed the checkpoints so you can easily see them. So it worked out really well. But as I'm riding through here, I'm kind of, God, I should be cutting some of these squiggles, but I ended up not doing that. I kind of wish I did.
Yeah, I didn't either, because it takes a lot of time to keep track of the squiggles, and it's difficult. So it's like, it'll probably take more time to keep track of the squiggles than it would be just to ride the trails. But right. I don't know if that was the right decision or not.
Yeah. It's one thing when your brain's fried because you're overheating, and it's another thing when you're like armchair quarterbacking it the day after and you're like, why did I do that?
That might have been more important in this north part, where if you did keep track of the squiggles, maybe you could have cut across that.
All right, so we are back. Zoom cut off on us again. Just starting to get a little irritating. Thank you, internet. I'm going to go back to share the screen on bike 2. Okay, so nope, that was bike number 1. Sorry about this, guys. This is the thing about it. Race stuff expires very quickly. So what we're trying to do is get this information out to you very quickly before it expires, which means there is no editing. This is it. Okay, guys.
Albeit imperfect.
Imperfect.
It's going to go out there.
So we're in the van in a parking lot doing this. So, okay, so here we are. This is the north bike. There's this flaming Wildcat, I guess. There's a little tiny loop here that had a checkpoint or 2 on there. I think there's 1 on this one and 2 on this one, and way up here, because it's Voodoo and then this Hocus Pocus. So basically, there's checkpoints along the way. You had no idea when or where they were going to be. It could be on the left side or the right side, basically a loop, and they said they're not on any connector trails. So again, I was a little brain fried. I just rode all the trails. I just didn't want to take the brain power and take the chance of missing a CP by skipping some of this. So how did you approach this?
Same. But I loved the design. Like you said, a little bit of a brain break, and it's just fun. These trails were really well made. Some mumbo jumbo was really fun. Voodoo was a little more technical and rocky. Trying not to get hurt, so I walked a few things, but I did see someone fall. There was someone else nearby to make sure everything was okay, and but I think there probably was some falls. I'll just say
Yes, I thought it was pretty challenging mountain biking. Like
it was,
especially we were doing the mumbo jumbo, and it's kind of fun, just curvy and all that. As you went through Voodoo and Hocus Pocus, it got technical. There was a lot of rock gardens. There was a lot of steep climbs. There's a lot of routes. There's a lot of, and when I say rock gardens, I mean stuff like you have to pick a good line, or you're over the bars, or you're walking your bike. Also, at this point, I mean, it was hot. We're sweating to death. Um, I know I was kind of rationing water coming off this, so I was slowing down a little bit. And again, I didn't want to get hurt for Paraguay, so I was not taking chances like I normally would. So that is the bike leg. So now we're on to the first paddle. So basically from the start, we had to come up here. I think it was this right here, this transition area, probably, yeah, kayak launch. And then it was kind of interesting. It was kind of actually tough putting the boats in the water because some of us had like the big 17-footer, like crazy fast boats, and then other people had like the little bobo
and other
pelicans.
people wished we had those long boats.
So this was a unique race in the fact that racers could bring their own boats. And I know there's some disagreement with that. Is that fair or not? But at the end of the day, you can have a $10,000 mountain bike that's super light, or you can have a bobo bike from Walmart. So in adventure racing, you just got to be ready for everything. So I was using a 17-foot fiberglass boat, and you were using one of the Pelicans.
I was very jealous of his long boat. I used the 10-foot Pelican, which I thought was actually really comfortable, but it did start to get under my skin when like anyone who passed me had a really long boat. No one with the Pelican passed me. So,
Right. So also I didn't need a paddle bag because I was able to load both the front and rear compartments of anything. Like I could have extra water. I could have wheels for portaging. I even had a spare paddle in case my fiberglass paddle broke. I mean, I was loaded down. Meanwhile, people on the Pelicans, everything's got to be sitting on top. So you have your pack and you have your paddle bag behind you, and it's just a little bit clunkier. And so either way, that's how the paddle works. You just got to read the race rules and go.
Right. I think it's fair. It's as much as we don't like it, the mountain bikes is a good example. Like we all have to have our own bike, and I don't know. It is what it is.
Is what it is. Okay, so we put in here, we went down this little channel that was super shallow, and like any of these nice boats, epics with the rudder or the skeg that couldn't be pulled up. I'm sure these guys had a hard time, and ladies, kind of going through there because you're hitting the bottom, you're hitting sandbars and logs and all this stuff. So I had my rudder up, so I was able to bounce over stuff and not have any trouble. But I'm sure some solos had a problem there. So basically, we just went through this Lake Ackworth at night, cruising up and popping checkpoints along the way. Just a really long paddle. It's beautiful.
We both skipped that one.
We both skipped this point. And again, this comes down, I think we both looked at this and said, that out and back is probably 45 minutes. We need to be moving quicker than that. We got to cut something. That's a fool's point, even though it would have been super easy to just go up there and find the bridge. We both chose to cut that point to save the time to go elsewhere.
Interestingly enough, though, we had different speed boats, but we both used the same measurement of about 10 minutes per kilometer. It was a loose measurement, but it really helped me stay focused. And this was at night in the dark. So I was pretty hyper vigilant to stay on track and to know where I was at all times. I had a compass strapped to my leg, which I think you did too. Great tool. Great. That was my favorite piece of gear. But we did have a different strategy right where you're looking.
Also, it's interesting that some people had their headlamp going all the time, looking around at stuff. I was going off of night vision, and I would only use my lamp to look at my map from time to time. I would try to memorize it, look at distances, and I used my stopwatch to time it. So I knew if I just go on this bearing for this number of time, keep my eyes on the horizon, I was good to go. So so I kind of felt bad for the people that were like burning up their lights, just looking everywhere. But either way, this was a really interesting thing. Anybody that was really following this race, you saw a lot of activity because there's this checkpoint buried way up here in this corner. And then you either had to come all the way around or you portaged across. And so some people chose to portage over here, which is kind of an up and over, a little bit more challenging. And then I chose to come down portage right here because there was actually some trails. Maybe I can switch over to open topo and show the trails. Yeah, see this trail right here, which was on our map. I was able to catch that trail really quick. I didn't have to carry the boat through the woods too far. Popped out my wheels, and I just was so happy to get out of that boat, stretch my legs. I walked along this trail, came over here, found a nice area, and plopped in, and then came around that corner and kept going. So how'd you do
Yet
this?
another reason I wished I had my own boat, because as much as I did not like the Pelicans, I felt like it was not my boat and I couldn't drag it. I didn't have wheels and I knew I wasn't strong enough to pick it up and carry it that distance. So I did not portage. I wish I did. When you look at the trackers, though, it's going to be confusing because those red dots are bike points. And, so looking at where people portaged is a little bit tricky. You got to drill down and see. But obviously, I'm giving it away. I didn't get any of those red bike points. So it's really easy to see where you should have portaged if you had the ability.
Yes. So as we go forward, you can see here, this was a trek point. It's kind of creative how the race was designed. So this paddle is just on some island and you get it. You have no idea that later on, you're actually going to swim over to that island on the trek. You had no idea because
we didn't even notice it. We didn't realize it until the end of the race that we went to that same point twice.
Because we're not being given maps.
Didn't look the same.
No idea where we're going until you get to a TA and they hand you a new map. So we had no idea that
that was pretty cool.
It was great. So this was an interesting crux of the race. This is another one. Like, do I give this up or not? You can see this little point here that's not too far up the topo, but you're already there. Like, do you climb this huge mountain and come up to the top, burning off a lot of calories, or do you give it up and keep going? So it looked like you chose to go to the top.
I did, and I made a little bit of a bobble. That didn't take me too long, but the climb it took it out of me. I wanted to be walking on my feet, though. It felt good to be out of the boat, but it did take a lot of time. I probably wouldn't do that again. I just didn't have the mindset of I need to focus on what I'm better at. I'm better at biking, and I should have left that.
Yep. I was still trying to use the strategy of if it's going to take me more than 30 minutes, I probably should cut it. I assessed this and looked at there's probably a lot more points out there, and I assessed my little time estimate. And I was like, nope. So I came up and I got this one, got back to the boat and hauled butt, and just gave that one up. Again, it was hard for me. Okay, so we're off the paddle. Now we're on to this next trek leg. I think, what is this, about 5 or 6 points? Another huge climb. We had a very different strategy on this. So what was your strategy on this next trek leg?
Just not my best work. Yeah, I just wanted to get those, the more southern points. There were 3 I left at the top, but I just, this was much steeper than any of the areas we'd been before. And I hadn't really gotten that into my head. Like, I should have been able to see the overview that, oh, the topo lines on this map are really close together and the topo lines on the finish trek are not. So I think if you're trying to maximize your points per minute, like, these points took longer to get because the topo was so steep. So I came around, what number is that one? Yeah, 30. I came around clockwise. I definitely wanted to see the overlook. I always think you should not skip any overlook points. Like, if the clue is overlook, you should go to the point. You want to see beautiful things. And I also had that thought with this high point. So that was tricky. I decided I wanted to go to the high point. I was using my altimeter, but on the maps, I did not realize that the bold lines were 200 meters apart, or feet, sorry, 200 feet apart. I thought they were 100 feet apart. So I was looking for the point a whole 100 feet below where I should. So you can see I looked for down there. I decided, I might as well just go all the way to the top because then I could just come down on it. So I finally get all the way to the top, another 100 feet in elevation. And I decided, I don't need to take the trail. I see the top, I can just bushwhack just a little bit. And I crawl through these like briars and bushes and I pop out at the very top where it's rocky and there's tourists there and they look at me like, where did she come from? I was pretty embarrassed, but I popped out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm at the top now. I took a bearing. I go down southeast. There's a trail. I'm like, okay, it's got to be down this way. Walked right past it. So then I look around a lot more. Like, you can see where I moved around, that's a lot more elevation than you'd think. So I'm like, okay, I got to give this up. It's taking too long, but I just got to one more try. I got all the way up here. So I went all the way back up to the top. And as I was going up that trail, you could see it off to the left. And it wasn't really hidden. It was just easy to miss. So it was right where it's supposed to be. That killed me. Tons of time, tons of effort, really hot, lots of elevation. And I was just taking away from time I could have used later to get easier points. But again, I had an amazing experience because I got to the high point. The high point was like 1,500 feet, 1,575. It was beautiful, but you know, what do you do?
Once again, our strategies were completely different on this. So as I pull into this TA, my soul is now crushed. Jesse Tubb is getting into his boat to paddle away. I think this is 7:30 in the morning. I know that he has cleared this entire course, including this monster trek and all this elevation. And literally, like, just seemed like 4 or 5 minutes behind him. Here comes Tim Brookles, just smiling, looking like nothing. I'm shot out of the cannon, as Brian Gettins would say. And meanwhile, these two dudes are just killing it. They're leaving, and I'm like, holy crap. They're just animals. Either way, I get to this TA. My soul has now been crushed. I'm looking at my little time estimates. I'm like, I need to be getting on the water in 1 hour to leave this place if I'm going to make my. I wanted to leave about 5 hours for that last 4 hour section because I knew that was going to be a target rich environment. And I'm looking at all these paddle points. One of them was really high up here on the map, like the CP36. So you really, when you got to this TA, you had to look at the map they hand you, and then you look at the paddle map you already have. You gotta say, okay, what am I going to give up and what am I going to go after? So I basically kind of made the decision. My legs were already blown a little bit. I kind of felt it at CP25 as I was climbing up this, and I'm like, I might need this paddle to replenish my salts, my hydration, my food, and I also, as Andrew was saying in the earlier section, I was looking at these topo lines and seeing how close they are together. And I'm looking over here at the park where the final is going to be. And the topo lines are pretty wide. So I'm looking at this going, if I'm going to do well in this race, I need to rebuild my body for that 2 or 3 hours. So that when I get to the finish line to do those two things, that I'm going to be fresh. I can run again. I can balls to the wall on the bike and I can clear that. I made the decision. I came in here. I got the one on the overlook. Actually, let me pop back over to the, here we are. I can get it to move. Oop, hang on 1 second. So here was my strategy. I came in here, got to the TA, decided, okay, I wanted to leave at 8:30. That ain't gonna happen. 9:30. I'm just gonna try to get these 3 or 4 points here. So basically, I went and did the overlook because, like Andrew said, you have to go to the overlook, and it was easy. Came down, came up the reentrant, went over and popped this one on the way back, and gave up everything up here. I just wanted to. I was feeling it. I'm winded. I'm hot. It's sunny. I was like, I need to replenish myself. And so, like I said, it takes us off that trek onto the paddle. Pretty straightforward paddle. Although this island here, I got out of that boat and I was halfway up and I locked up, cramped, couldn't walk up, couldn't walk down, couldn't bend my leg, couldn't stand up. I sat there and just like whimpered. And so I knew I had made the right decision. There was no way I could have gotten more of those steep topo because you can tell this one's not that steep and I'm already locking up. So, okay. So at this point, Chip's in absolute recovery mode, drink, take salts, eat food, paddle, enjoy myself. And so I'm basically dilly-dallying around here. I'm doing all these paddle points. I am on track. Believe it or not, I had said in the earlier part of this video, I wanted to be right here at CP39 at 12 p.m., noon or whatever, 12 noon. I hit this point at 12:19. So I am super proud of myself. It worked. I gave up the points. I'm on track. Everything's great. I'm going to get to the finish line. I think I got to the finish line at 1:15-ish.
You're saying finish line, but it's really a TA.
It was really a TA.
Yeah. The last TA was the same location as the finish line. Just making sure y'all understand that.
So how did you do the paddle?
Well, I wanted to leave 2 hours to get to the TA finish area because I thought, well, I do not want to paddle anymore. My boat is really, really slow. 2 hours, I thought it would take me about an hour without getting any points. So 2 hours would let me get that one northern point. and then maybe have some time to spare. And it's a good thing I had some time to spare, because as I was coming down, um, I was around some folks. Like I said, there wasn't much help in the race. There wasn't many teaming up moments. If there were, they were short and not long lasting. But so I was getting ready to turn in, and someone was being what they thought was being kind to me and said, I don't think we've gone far enough. And I second guessed myself. Oh, life lesson right here. I shouldn't have done that. I was doing well the whole race with navigating by the paddle, but I let someone make me think I was in the wrong place. And it was a little confusing. And I was tired. So then I thought, well, maybe he's right. So we go down. Several other people are kind of right behind us too. We go down and it doesn't seem to be lining up. And then the time is ticking. And then I realize that little island is on the map. And I see an island that looks not really natural. It was kind of built up with bricks. So it didn't really, had to kind of use your imagination to make the map match reality. When I saw that, like, we definitely went too far. We got to haul back. And at that time, I was just busting my butt to get back there by the cutoff at 2 o'clock. I got there maybe with 5 minutes to spare, and so close that I thought, I'm going to have to run up to the punch before I do anything with the boat. I didn't have to, but man, it was close and stressful, and I wasted a lot of energy. I'd wasted a lot of energy on that big trek because I went all over to the highest point on that trek, and then I wasted a lot of energy with that adrenaline there at the end and just pushing on the paddle. So I kind of wish I'd done that differently. But we made it to the TA, and then, this is the final.
Yeah, this is the final. And one other thing on the cutoff, it was one checkpoint you lose for every 10 minutes past the 2 o'clock cutoff. So you actually did squeak by.
Yeah.
Again, I landed there, I think 50 minutes ahead of time. So I was happy with that buffer because I knew this was going to be hard to clear. So this is Andrea's, you can basically see, and did you go clockwise or counterclockwise?
Well, I kind of went oddly clockwise.
Oddly clockwise. So basically you can see there's a swim. And then as she came across, she swam here, swam here. These were not hard points to get, but as you can see, there's a lot of course strategy, a lot of bushwhacking, how to catch trails, get it through there. Is there anything on that you want to talk about?
The big swim.
The big swim.
That was the biggest swim of the race. Hard. It's kind of why I chose to go there first, because swimming is my most challenging discipline. And I didn't realize how challenging it would be. But then I saw 2 or 3 people coming back because they had just finished. They looked wrecked. And every single person warned me how long it was. Like they said, I hope you're a good swimmer. I hope you like swimming. That was really hard. It was a lot farther than it looks. So I was already like a little freaked out. That's a long way for me. And it took me a long time. So right when I get there, I see Chip. Yep. When we're in the water, I'm usually like so thankful I'm with him because he can, he's a fish. So he was there, but he's like, well, I just did it. It was really, really hard. What did you think of the swim?
I totally wasn't scared of the swim. Like you said, I'm a fish. I did drop my pack. I was kind of dumb. I went with my shoes thinking I was dumb because I knew I could walk up without shoes on. Halfway across, I did, took the shoes off. No. I went all the way across with my shoes on, decided that was super inefficient. Got the checkpoint, got back in. I actually stuffed my shoes down my pants.
While you were swimming, right?
Well, when I got in the water, I took my shoes off and put my shoes down my pants, and I had a hat on just to keep the sun off because it was hot. And so stuffed the hat down the front, the shoes down the back, and I was able to do freehand or whatever and came across. So that was way more efficient. I wish I'd left the shoes and the hat on the other side. But I guess I would say 3/4 of the way back, both of my legs cramped up to the point where I couldn't move them. I was super happy. I was a strong swimmer, so I could sit there and tread water with just my hands. And I was thinking to my head, I also have Tomas Diaz behind me, and he's kind of flailing around, kind of like I was. He was actually getting off track. So I'm like worried about him. I'm worried about me. I get to shore. I can barely walk back to my pack. I'm doing that whole, like, I'm cramping up thing. And I was like, whoa, because I'd heard other racers say, be careful, you'll cramp up. Because again, we're 22 hours into a race or something, right? And we've been going really hard. I literally got out of the water, and Tomas, I'm sorry about this, but I'm standing there and I'm looking at you and I'm seeing that you're frailing around a little bit, having trouble. And I'm like, even if you called for help, I can't help. I was locked up, both legs locked, and you were at least 100 meters away. And I'm just like, it was really awkward. I just like didn't know what to do. And I come out, I get my pack, my shoes are on, and guess what? I see her. And I'm like, whoa, like now I'm worried about her. I got Tomas out there, like think like might die on me, and then she's about to do this incredible thing, and I'm like, I got to get to the finish line, and but luckily she was packing up and putting her shoes in, and everything's gonna float. So I knew at least she had flotation, she'd be fine. So I walked away. And I was like, good luck, so
Yeah,
that was
I
hard
could
for
tell
me.
in Chip's face, kind of like, I don't want you to do this. But I was there with Cody and Jesse Spangler. Tomas went off, and those two guys were there, and I started before them. And, I was like, well, whatever, this stuff floats, so it's not going to be the worst thing ever. It's just going to take me a while. And it did. And about halfway through, like, Cody's catching up to me, and he kind of says, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I just look like I'm drowning, but I'm just doing my backstroke with my pack on, taking forever. I finally got across. But again, it took me a long, long, long time. I'm just not a good swimmer. It took a lot out of me. So doing the rest of that trek, I did it. It wasn't pretty. The nav, I did fine. And I gave up that South Point because I just got to get at least 1 point on the bike.
Right.
It's
Because
my
you're
favorite
stronger
thing.
on the bike.
Again, why didn't I just skip some of this in favor of more bike points?
Right.
Just,
Especially, I don't know about
kicking
you,
myself
but
for
if
that.
if my legs are feeling blown on going up and down steep elevation, I get on the bike and I feel
Yes.
rejuvenated.
Yes.
And so I am surprised you didn't do more biking.
Yeah.
So do you want to say anything about the bike?
Well,
All 2 points.
I'll just say I got dumb. I mean, it's an odd feeling because your mind just doesn't think quite straight. Like I knew what I needed to be doing, and I knew what I was seeing, and I was having a hard time making it line up. And that was kind of the indicator to me that I couldn't take any chances here because I didn't want to be overtime on the way back. So I got that 1 point, and yeah, it was a hard decision not to go for more. But at the same time, I was freaked that I was going to get lost. Like, and it's the mental drain. Like, I just knew if I had time to eat and rest just a little bit, it would all come back to me. But I didn't have time for that. So I just went back, and you can tell your part of how you did this, but I will say Chip came along. I saw him again, and he blasted by me on his bike. Like, just, I couldn't believe how fast he was going. I couldn't even hardly tell it was him until I hear him say, maybe you should say it.
Oh, and I'm bombing down a hill, and she's at the bottom of the hill, and I recognize her. And as I'm blasting down the hill, again, in the back of my mind, she might beat me on this race, and that's going to be like embarrassing.
Whatever.
But whatever. We're competitive.
Never really thought that.
And so halfway down this hill, I'm like, excuse me, ma'am, I'm trying to beat you. And like, she's like, what the hell? And I go blasting by as fast as I could. And I was like, it never gets old. And that's a thing that her son always says. And so it was pressing. Now I'm hoping I'm not going to get a flat tire and make a wrong turn on the way home. Because if you blasted by me, I'd just shoot myself and jump in the lake or something.
It was funny, though, especially since you said it never gets old. I mean, it's just, it just really was perfect. But it was funny to me, too, because I was stopping to check the "You Are Here" sign, which on my way out, I had seen Donna Boots looking at, and she was needing the intel too. So she was like, I thought, well, I'm just going back the way I came, and she must be also like, why does she need to look at that? And then I come back the same way she did, and I'm stopping at the same place I saw her, thinking, where am I? So I'm like, I'm just going back to where I came, but my brain is fried. So I knew I made the right decision, but I wished I hadn't wasted so much energy earlier. So
the bike, it wasn't hard, but it was a lot of riding, and you wanted to not make a lot of wrong turns. Also, not shown on this is this yellow road was off limits, so you had to take the trails. And there's some trails, as always in adventure racing. There's some trails that are there that aren't on the map, and there's some stuff that's on the map that aren't there. So I got whacked one time, wasted a lot of time down in this area looking for this checkpoint. But I eventually recovered, probably wasted a couple minutes there. And then basically all this was pretty standard. This one was kind of interesting. It was a drop the bike and hike out, pretty much using train association. This took a lot of time. This was probably 2 to 3K, maybe 2K of bushwhacking and following the train. I think this is another one, as I was talking to Jesse Spangler, I think he gave this one up because it would have taken too much time and he was trying to get to the finish. We were leapfrogging with a bunch of other teams here and racers, so it's kind of fun. Like everybody is making their way back to the finish, and leapfrogging on trails and taking different routes. And so that was a lot of fun. And I felt just energized again. I got my last CP. I just need to haul ass to the finish. I think I was able to pass 2 other solos because you never know if they've got the same exact points. You got to beat them to the finish and on the timing. And so I absolute blew it out coming here. I gave it all I got and blasted by you right here at that. I think it's coming down this hill, blasted by you, made the turn, crossed the finish line, hands in the air. I don't know who I beat, but at least I beat Andrea. I was
you
hoping.
thought I was right behind you.
Thought she was right behind me.
10 minutes later or something, I show up. Yeah.
Okay.
If only I hadn't stopped for those 2 "you are here" signs, park signs. I might have made up those 4 minutes and then I could have been second place. But no, I was third place, and that was even way better than I expected. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, very good race. All right. So most importantly, we got a few minutes for the lessons learned. You want to start?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned most of them, but really, for me, the biggest thing was just I can do it. I'd done a lot of things like this with other teammates, and being on my own, like, it was fun. I still prefer a team, but I learned a lot, and there's nothing like practice and doing the real thing on your own.
A couple for me was to be swim ready, like just everything is in a tight dry bag instead of having all the crap in the pockets. Like a big expedition, maybe not so much, but a race like this, I should have transitioned to swim ready. I also went in like normal AR. I got my rain jacket and all this. There was very minimal gear. I should have just stripped myself down to nothing, and I didn't do that. Let's see. One thing was neat. My bite valve falls off. So, so I don't have a bite valve, but I did have the valve to open and shut. And that actually worked out really good because I was drinking out of a bottle where I was putting scratch in. It was way quicker to fill it without the bite valve. So I might go with no bite valve moving forward. So I like that a lot. Like you said, the compasses were good. I was switching between my running shoes and my boat shoes, like little neoprene booties, because they're easier to get in and out of on the boat. I kind of liked that, but I might just go to taking the socks off and then putting my running shoes back on and off. My strategy on the timing, I really liked that I did that. I did the math, and it really helped keep me on track because I'm one, I don't want to give up on CPs, and I end up with no time at the end. So that for me was really good. Let's see what else.
Strategy wise, I just really, again, wish I'd focused on my strengths. Give up things I'm not good at. Do what I'm good at. It's a hard lesson to learn. Favorite foods?
Favorite food? Oh, anything mushy. Like, oh my God, peanut butter and jelly with honey was amazing. The Mike's, we got Mike's subs, Jersey Mike's subs, and I couldn't wait.
But it's not prepackaged. We really want to go prepackaged next time if we're spending a lot of time in the water. And the Slim Jim and cheese combo, oh, so good. Really good. I like that, and always scratch now.
Yep. Yeah. And I didn't like the stuff like the trail mix that was dry. It got in my mouth. I kept having to brush my teeth, so I didn't like the flavor. That was me. So I think that was it. On the night paddle, I kind of wish I had like a little tiny LED over my map, so my maps were lit up. I didn't want to have to turn my headlamp on to see it because it blinded me. Also, like the glow stick on the bow, you want it vertical or the length of the boat so that you're not looking at a glow stick horizontal because that was blinding me as well. Other than that, I think those are the main lessons. It's like every race, I feel like I learned something.
Favorite CP?
The swim, just because it was really hard.
Yeah, the hardest ones are those. I was going to say scary. The highest point that you didn't go to, maybe also because it was the hardest. But great race. Right. Congratulations to the winner, Lisa Randall. Man, I think she had like 8 points on me. And, the guys that cleared the course, whew, and even Chip, geez. Yeah.
Lisa
you blow me away. You were closer to her, but you beat my butt all the time.
What did I end? I think I ended up 5th overall.
No, you're 5th, and I think 6th overall.
6th overall, 5th.
I was 3rd and 14th overall.
Still.
Out of 31. I mean, really, I thought I might be curled up in a ball at sunrise. Yep. So, anyway.
So, good job, AR Georgia. We really enjoy it. Hopefully, this is the first of many Adventure Racing solo championships. We had a blast, and we hope others had a blast.
I'd recommend trying solo races, even though I like teams better.
Yes. All right. That's it. Enjoy.